Hello and welcome to the history of Babylon 5. Today we're going to be covering Lord Antono Refa. And here we go. Refa was a Centauri nobleman and politician, as well as one of the members of the most powerful houses in the Centaurum. Lord Antono Refa was extremely ambitious and ruthless in his efforts to increase his personal power and influence, and was willing to initiate mass murder, assassinations, and outright betrayal to achieve his goals, preferring to operate behind the scenes and manipulate others to serve his needs. He rarely moved directly, or risked his own neck unless he was sure of success. Like many noble Centauri of the old school of thinking, Refa considered his race to be superior, while other races, especially the Narn, were to him like little more than animals, and had no qualms against committing war crimes, mass destruction, or outright genocide against them if it suited his aims. Refa's ultimate ambition was nothing less than claiming the imperial throne for himself. Initially, Refa saw Lando Mollari as an ally and worked together with them in their mutual desire to restore the Centauri Republic to its former power, prestige, and glory. However, as their alliance became increasingly uneasy, they became bitter rivals. In 2259, Refa arrives at Babylon 5, shortly after the only son of Emperor Turin dies, leaving a gap in the line of succession for the Centauri throne. On his first visit, Refa makes it clear to the Centauri ambassador Lando Mollari that he speaks for a group of Centauri politicians who are interested in making a move for the throne after the death of Turin, giving Lando newfound prestige in the royal court, which he gained following military success brought about by his clandestine dealings with Mr. Morden. Refa comes to Lando to ask for his support in the group's plans. Lando gives his consent, a decision that would set him on a course with the destiny he always foresaw. Later, this group stages a coup while the ailing Turin pays a visit to Babylon 5. The purpose of this visit, as Turin sees it, is to ask for the forgiveness and peace from the Narn ambassador Jakar for the great abuses the Centauri had done to the Narn. Unfortunately, Turin collapses before he can offer this in person to Jakar, though his message is relayed to the Narn through Dr. Franklin. With Turin now dying and his message of peace not delivered in public view of the Centauri and Narn, Refa's men take this opportunity to strike on his orders, carrying out the assassination of Turin's loyal prime minister on Centauri Prime, while Refa and Lando on Babylon 5 are present at the death of the Emperor. When Refa privately learns from Lando that the Emperor had damned them both with his last words instead of giving them his blessing, as Lando publicly had reported, he callously dismisses it. Refa and his associates install the mad Cartagia as emperor and began a protracted war against the Narn. Utilizing Lando's agreement with the Shadows and the Centauri forces, Refa personally oversees the war. At the same time, he proceeds to get the rest of his political enemies out of the way by arranging them to be formally arrested, tried, and executed on trumped-up charges of treason, then having their families disgraced and their property confiscated under Centauri law. Learning of the news from that the Narn planned to use virtually their entire fleet to attack a Centauri supply post, Refa decides to launch an assault on the Narn homeworld. He cannot do so without Lando's help, however, and though Lando reluctantly agrees, he asserts that this is the last time he will bring his associates into the situation. Soon after, the Shadows are unleashed on the Narn fleet, obliterating it. At the same time, the Centauri fleet make use of planetary bombardment weapons called mass drivers, despite Lando pointing out that they had been banned through a written agreement among the League of Non-Aligned Worlds, which Refa calmly dismisses as ink on a page. They proceed to attack and subjugate the Narn, under the observations of Refa, Lando, and their Centauri allies. After this victory, Refa and his associates proceed to enforce their rule upon Narn, in their ruthless determination to ensure the Narn will never be a threat to the Centauri Republic again. They set up concentration camps for Narn dissenters as well as genetically cleansing programs, adding countless numbers of the millions of deaths of civilian Narns already killed in the war. Meanwhile, Lando informs Morden that he will no longer be in need of assistance from his associates, which prompts Morden to begin contact with Lord Refa. When Morden informs Londo of this, Londo becomes quite concerned, and all the more so when he learns Refa is exploiting his newfound alliance in threatening wars with other worlds. In an effort to prevent Lord Refa from continuing this relationship with the Shadows and possibly leading their world into oblivion, Londo poisons Refa's drink during a meeting on Babylon 5, telling him that it is a 2-stage poison that will not kill him until the second part is introduced. Londo assures Refa that this second part will not be introduced now if contact with Morden is ended, but it still may happen in the future should Refa betray him. An angry Refa realizes that Londo has him over a proverbial barrel and breaks off all contact with Morden. Again, Morden comes to Londo, this time quite angry that Londo would interfere with his associates' activity in this way. However, Londo wants nothing more to do with Morden. So when Londo again gives him the brush off, Morden arranges for Londo to care again by setting up the murder of Londo's true love, Adira Tyree. However, Morden takes this further by having her murdered with a poison of Centauri origin, convincing Londo to place the blame on Lord Refa, who is still upset about being poisoned. This again places Londo in the association with Morden, even as he resolves to do something about Lord Refa, who had been inciting a feud between their respective houses and weakening the defenses of Centauri Prime with constant warfare, in an elaborate plot staged to maximize Londo's political gain. Refa is lured to the Narn homeworld in expectations of capturing Jakar, who is on Narn looking for his old assistant, Natath. However, the actual plan is to capture Refa, who is responsible for the decision to use the mass drivers on Narn, and to turn him over to Jakar and the members of the Narn resistance, who have been allowed by Londo to kill this Centauri without retaliation. Two of the reasons Londo had for having Refa killed were personal. One, the death of Adira, which Refa was actually innocent of, and two, the death of Ursa Jado and Prime Minister Malachi, which Refa had been responsible for. In the end, Lord Refa is surrounded by Jakar's Narn associates and beaten to death for his involvement in the bombing of the Narn homeworld and the installation of the death camps and genetic cleansing programs. As an extra incentive, Malaria also arranges for the liberation of 2,000 Narns in exchange for Refa's death. On Babylon 5, Londo presents evidence of Refa's betrayal against the Republic and personal plots to a visiting Centauri minister, gaining prestige in the royal court and ruining Refa's name. Hey, thank you for watching the history of Babylon 5. Have a great day. Bye-bye.